Well, hello again, folks. It is 3 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm Dave Whitmore, part of the investor education team here at E-Trade, and this is session 4 in the Options Forum 2023 so far. And now in these next 2 sessions, we're turning to the platforms, 2 that we're going to focus on. One, the Power E-Trade platform here, our premier showcase active trader platform. Certainly, if you're here with us and have been with us today, you need to be using Power E-Trade. If you're not, certainly you should give it a kick. Really is designed to really streamline option trading strategies and processes, and then some of the stuff we're going to show. I'm going to bring our disclosure slide up here. I'll let you read that, but I just want to talk about a couple things that seem to come up over and over again. We get a question, where can I get a copy of these slides? Well, if you go to the resources widget, that's the green box directly below the window right there. There's a copy of any slides we're presenting. Now, this session here doesn't have slides because we're going to do screen share, but our previous sessions, there are copies of those decks there. We are also recording this. It will automatically be available at our at etrade.com/events under the On Demand tab. It takes about an hour or so for that to render. So certainly this evening and tomorrow, the full run of Options Forum will be available for viewing that way. And we fully know that many of the views will be that way. I mean, we know it's kind of burdensome to spend a full day listening to the boring drones of the 4 of us, but maybe over an extended period it works a little better. All right, so I'm going to start just by talking a little bit about the Power E-Trade platform. And then my colleague Steve is going to take over, and we'll go through some of the processes and steps and features in the Power E-Trade platform that lend itself and help with spread trading. So I'm going to share my second monitor here. This takes a little bit. I'm going to share that. And what you're going to see when the screen share comes up is I'm going to be looking at the complete view page in the E-Trade website. This is probably the page you land on when you first log in. It doesn't have to be.
And most importantly here, Dave, because we're going to be looking at some live data and live positions, nothing that you see is by any stretch of the imagination a buy, sell, or hold recommendation. But we are going to go through some examples.
That's right. Very good, Steve. Thank you for catching me on that. Okay, so here's the complete view page. You can see I've got a little alias of the account holder there, Margin Trader. I'm not going to go through a big tour of this, but I just simply want to draw your attention over here to the launch pad. You can see that right there. Power E-Trade is our streaming trading platform, and all you got to do is hit that launch button there, and it will display. It opens up in a browser window. It's not a software application. You don't have to install anything. You don't need admin rights. It just is an advanced application in a browser window that allows for streaming and customization and great functionality. One more thing before I leave here. Notice right below, paper trading. Test drive Power E-Trade. So paper trading is a fake money account. It's cloned from the Power E-Trade platform. And it allows you to, 1, get familiar with the buttons and the clicks and the menus, and 2, to actually test out trades. It works with real market data, and it opens it up with a $100,000 fictitious account. And anytime you want, you can reset it back to the original 100. So at any rate, that's a quick rundown of how to get to Power E-Trade. And here is the Power E-Trade platform. Particular stock I have up here, Marvell Technology. And again, we have numerous recorded sessions at etrade.com/events that go through in more detail, touring and demoing the overall platform. But for right now, I'm going to ask Steve to take over screen sharing, and he's going to bring up his account, and we're going to go through the steps of placing a spread order. There's a couple of ways to go about it. We'll look at some positions, and we'll look at how a spread looks in the positions listing. We'll talk about how to close it out, and we'll see some of the some of the probability analysis that we can avail ourselves of. All right, so I am seeing Cisco Systems on Steve's chart right here, so it's all yours.
Thanks, Dave. So let's start by running through the various ways that you can place a spread trade on Power E-Trade. And I'm going to start with the one I hope no one ever uses. There is an omnipresent trade button in the upper right corner of every platform. And it's typically on the quote box line. And if you click that, it does bring up an order ticket. And if what you wanted to do was trade stock, this is a great avenue to do that quickly. But so often, the way that previous platforms have allowed you to build an option spread was very laborious, and you'd click and you'd add an option and you'd add another leg and you'd buy one and sell one and then find the strike price that you wanted. And please, please, please don't trade options this way. We have a very advanced, and we talked about it earlier today, options chain. And the way that you can trade an option spread in Power E-Trade is now so much more efficient. What we've really done, and the true sophistication of this platform, and it derived its birth from a proprietary trading firm that I worked at for years and years, called Peak 6. But the real sophistication and the real advancement in technology is how quickly you can get the idea out of your head and into the marketplace working, how quickly you can get your spreads working by the minimal number of computer clicks, quite frankly. And so if I were looking at this chart, I would say, oh, wow, there's a little bit of resistance up here in Cisco around the 52 level, 51 level. It might be a candidate, buy, sell, or hold recommendation for a potential credit spread, credit call spread. Try to earn a little bit of income selling possibly an upside call and buying another call to protect myself against an outside move. And on the E-Trade option chain, the way that you build a spread is quite simply click on the bid side of the market, the options market, if you wish to sell an option. And you can see it quickly populates selling one July 50 call. And if you want to buy an option, you can minimize that to get it out of the way. If I want to buy the 55 call, simply click on the ask side of the market in the strike you wanted to buy. And oops, on purpose, I made a mistake. I clicked on the 52.5 strike call, but I actually want to buy the very cheap 55 strike call. And you can grab that option that you did click that's showing in your option chain and simply drag it up. And now when you look at the order ticket, you can see I have the 50, 55, call vertical selected. It automatically populates a limit price. I have my trade default selected to, when I'm trading a spread, to always pick the midpoint of the spread price. So that makes it even more efficient. I typically don't have to even change this. But just to see how quickly I can get it in, I did adjust it to 98. I don't want to actually be filled right away here on this spread. So I want to put it into the market. And you can see that quickly we are working the 50-55 call vertical, bear credit spread, bear call credit spread at 98 cents. And I've got a confirmation box. If I don't want to see this confirmation box, it's another setting that we can pick in this settings cog in the upper header. But I did, for the purposes of this demo, want to show how quickly I can see that it's still open. I haven't been filled, and there's a button to modify that order. By clicking modify, I can bring the price down to exactly at the mid-market. and then try it at 97 cents, and lo and behold, I'm filled. I mean, that quickly, I've gotten feedback that my order's in the market, it's working, it's filled. That is pretty much the preferred way that I do my spread trading here at E-Trade. If I wanted to use some additional functionality, we have many different spreads that create a spread chain to basically do the same process, but you pick which spread you want to see displayed on the chain itself. So for purpose of simplicity, we've been talking about vertical spreads today. I'm going to pick vertical. And you can see now in the header of my vertical chain, I have something called width, and it's a choice. It can be either a dollar width or a strike width. And most of the time, I like looking at dollar width because that translates across different symbols. Sometimes strike prices are $1 wide, and in the case of SPYs and QQQ, but in certain stocks, they're not necessarily the same strike width. So I tend to like to look at dollar widths, and I'm going to look at a $5 wide spread. And in fact, you can see my 50-55 call spread is now displayed in the chain itself. Now, as you can see, many of my columns that I picked in my straight chain that showed calls on the left side and puts on the right side are now dashes, because the value in the value of those in a spread format does not necessarily present a real number. But what it does do is shows you the bid and ask price of that specific spread in the bid and ask column. It shows you how much that spread changed on the day. It shows you what your delta is. So still some very, very valuable information, but it's shown right on the chain itself. So if I wanted to turn this into an iron condor, I might consider selling the 47.5, 42.5 put spread. And to create that order in one click, simply click on the bid side of the 42.5, 47.5 put spread side, and it builds my trade. Now, when I do a spread trade, my defaults are 2 contracts. So if I don't want 2 contracts, I do want to update that and make it just 1 contract. And let's just go ahead and send that in. And you can see in 3 clicks, I put it in, and lo and behold, I'm filled on that now. Just like that, I'm filled on both the put credit spread and a call credit spread, or Dave Whitmore's favorite strategy. I'm sorry, Sean. Dave Whitmore's favorite strategy, the iron condor. And as I said, there are many different types of spreads that are available to view as a spread itself on the chain itself. But again, I tend to look at just the outright chain because I like seeing what the individual strike prices characteristics are, the price, the delta, the implied volatility, things of that nature. And so I tend to just build my spreads very quickly using the outright call put chain, and simply by clicking on the side of the market that I want to do the opposite of, meaning the offer side if I want to buy and the bid side if I want to sell. Any questions about that? Hearing none. Let's move on. Again, the chain is a very, very powerful tool which allows you to quickly build and get your ideas into the marketplace working, as well as seeing your positions in the chain itself as well. That's what these little triangle, not chevrons, but little triangles are that are attached to the strike. And if you hover over them, it'll tell you what your position is. If I wanted to close
Steve,
that, go ahead, please.
So I'm going to go ahead and, while you're on the option chain, just because our Q&A is loading up with how did Steve get those columns? So I know we're trying to both demonstrate the concepts and Power E-Trade, but if you could show how you got those columns, how you have selected the columns that you have. Some people want to see open interest. I generally don't, but how do you customize them?
Great question. This session is all about functionality and enhancing everyone's ability to use and get all the benefits out of the E-Trade, Power E-Trade platform. So awesome, keep them coming. So I expanded my widget on the right side so that my header moved over a little bit more towards the center. This little three dots in the header of the chain itself allows me to customize my chain. And what Sean was referring to is the select columns. I have a litany of columns in here because I like to have available to me very quickly many different data points and calculations, but you can choose from a ton of different columns, and you can customize them either by dragging them on this column selector and to get them into the order, but even better is to, once you have the columns you want, you can just grab them on the chain itself and drag them over. One other feature on the chain itself is this strike left oriented and right oriented, which if you want to see all those columns that were hidden to the left and to the right, I can show just the call side. So now the strike column's all the way on the right, and I can see all those different columns that were hidden by showing the calls and the puts together. And if all of a sudden I wanted to see theta in my main column, simply grab the header, drag it over, and now theta will show in the actual my main view of the chain itself.
Great, thank you. Steve, I'll also mention real quick that you are capturing this image in high resolution. We all have very high resolution monitors. Our provider may be compressing more today than usual because I am seeing a little bit of pixelation on my end too. So can't say what's going on between Steve's screen and our screens, but it does look a little less sharp than it usually does. Could just be the number of attendees we have, which is vast. Steve, one of the things that I love about this, especially for people just getting started with spreads, is when we start talking about the probability of, and I was talking about, hey, you can do this, the debit spread I was doing was an in the money and an out the money. And I was saying, but you could do an in the money long leg and another in the money out leg, or you could do two out the monies. And it changes that risk reward probability. Can you mock up an example where we do that? And then the other ask I would have, and I know we've got limited time, is can you show how time, someone had said, well, what if I did a month versus 3 months or 3 months versus a year? How does time factor into this? Because in boot camp, we were talking so much about time decay, but time kind of becomes less relevant when you're doing spreads. And it's more about, when do you think it's going to get to the point that you think it's going to get to? Do you need 2 weeks? Do you need 2 months to do that? So can you hit those two? And then finally, the third request I'll say is, once you get one on, how do you close it out? Since we talked with Ken a lot about when in doubt, close it out. How fast can we close an existing trade out? And I'll go back to mute.
All right, a lot to digest there. So Dave, make sure we cover it all here. So one of the things by dragging theta over to a viewable column, you can see that theta for the spread is now displayed. And theta for this 50-55 call spread is a penny, 1.1 cents a day, meaning this vertical spread should decay, the value of it, theoretically, all other things remaining constant, should decay 1 cent or $1 every day. Conversely, if we look at the 50 call by itself, you can see where these numbers come from. That actually decays, that I'm short, 1.36 cents a day. And the call that I am long is going to decay like a quarter of a penny a day, 0.25 cents a day. That's being because it's only 5 cents of premium in it. So another value of displaying on the chain when you're picking your verticals to trade is you can see the delta of the vertical itself. You can see the theta of the vertical itself. And as such, by doing a credit spread and by doing a spread versus an option, I am diminishing the theta that I'm going to be receiving, but I am protecting myself a little bit on the potential loss. I'm limiting my downside loss. I'm going to jump over to the position view now and actually take a look at this spread that we just put on. It was a Cisco iron condor. And you can see that one of the things that the Power E-Trade platform does for you is it groups your positions as they are grouped in the margin engine. And because an iron condor has one margin requirement, it put those trades together. Now, at Power E-Trade and as a trader, I'm actually not thinking of this trade as an iron condor, even though that is what it is, in fact. And I want to look at them separately. I want to look at a credit call spread and a credit put spread. So I clicked on the line, and it brought up this action box. And I am clicking the grouping tab to be able to customize my grouping of this trade. I drag my two puts together, and now you can see the same position is showing in Cisco, and it's showing the 47.5, 42.5 put vertical and the 50-55 call vertical, both being short one. So you can see that this is extremely powerful. This gives the trader, this gives me the ability to look at these things differently and interact with them differently as well. Because I just traded these today, I don't want to close it today again because that would be actually a day trade. In fact, it might be 2 day trades. Instead, I put on a vertical spread in pins yesterday that I can play with today, and it won't be a day trade. So anyway, yesterday, not knowing that pins would be down 1% today, I bought the 25.5, 27 debit call spread. And in fact, it went against me. I paid 34.5 cents. You can see, again, these columns are customizable by clicking on these 3 dots in the upper right corner. And you can see any columns you want to see. This is just a particular setup that I'm accustomed to. But in it, I see my cost basis of the trade, and I see the current mark of the trade. I see the underlying price, the underlying change, how many contracts I have, and here is the bid and the offer. There are several ways I could close this trade very quickly. It's going against me. I can click on the line, and again, it brings up this very useful action box with a lot of different tools within it. The most important, in my estimation, are the Analyze tool, which brings up a snapshot analysis of the actual trade itself. Let's go over that way a little bit, and you can see that it's a debit call spread, so it makes money if the market would go up. Theoretically, is the thicker line, and sure enough, we're down some money right now actually and theoretically. And if it stays right here at expiration, I'll be down even more money. So let's say I want to close out one of the two contracts I have. There are two ways to do it. I could click on the bid side of the spread in the position view, 16 cents at 19 cents, and it would bring up closing the spread. I could add to this spread. If I said, oh, this is a winner, I know it's a winner, it's just today we're having a bad day, I'd click on the offer side of the spread, and again, it's bringing up my default quantity for opening a transaction, which is 2 contracts for spreads. Again, putting in, automatically populating the limit price of 17 cents, and I could very quickly add to my position. But instead, let's be disciplined and let's close out one of the 2 spreads. And then the other way to close it is to click on the line, and instead of analyzing it, these 4 buttons at the bottom are super valuable. One of them being close the trade. And again, 2 contracts, that's how many I have. I'm long 2, short 2, selling out of the spread at the mid-market price. Before we do that, let's look at the other very valuable buttons that are in this action menu. Roll being a really phenomenal tool. So this is a 2-legged spread. I can actually roll a 2-legged spread by clicking roll, and it creates a 4-legged ticket, closing the existing spread I have and opening the next month's spread that is as close in strike to the strike prices that I had on the existing one. In July, we don't have the 25.5 strike call in pins, so it populated to the next higher one, the 26. So this isn't like a perfect roll, but this is a calendar debit spread roll. I mean, that's unbelievable that you can build it that quickly and be able to, even with spreads, roll your spread out to the next month. If this was a weekly option, it would roll it to the next weekly expiration. So there's some logic behind what it auto-populates with that you need to be very careful and check to make sure it is doing what you expect it to do. So anyway, so this action box and Power E-Trade gives the user such power to be able to so quickly monitor, manage, and take care of the positions that they have in their account. So I'm going to close down one of these two positions. Again, 17.5 is the mid-market price. So I would expect, being only a penny above the bid price, I would expect I'd get filled. And sure enough, I got filled on one, leaving one in the account. But that's how quickly you can close out, when in doubt, close it out, a spread using Power E-Trade. Where do we go from here?
Well,
snapshot analysis. Oh, sorry, Dave's keeping track of my demands. Thanks, Dave, Steve.
Yeah, we could do that. We could go to snapshot analysis. One of the questions, by the way, that came up was, I forgot who asked it, was can you drag a symbol over directly into TradeLab or something along those lines? And the path is through that action box. If you click on a symbol in a watch list or a position, you get that action box, and Steve just showed. If you go to Analyze, it will then take you to be able to get a link into TradeLab. But what Sean was just talking about, see, there you go. And then you can analyze in TradeLab in the lower left. And this is the snapshot analysis tool that we focus on a lot when you're building the trade, to jump over to that tab that's in the order ticket for the snapshot analysis. For one thing, one of the things I talked about earlier, someone said, is there a fast way to sort of learn all these strategies? And to me, one of the steps is to work on the P&L charts, the profit and loss graphs that show the outcomes of options, and memorize them. I had a good friend who traded in Chicago years ago, and he had a poster of all the option strategies in several rooms of his house. So wherever he was staring at option strategies. So at any rate.
That's what we recommend, is put him in every room in your house. I'm sitting here in my office in Chicago, and sure enough, I'm look to my left, and I do have a option strategy charts, and it has all those snapshot analysis parity graphs of all the different strategies that are available.
Right.
In fact, if I take off my custom grouping and I look at the Iron Condor and we analyze that, you can see what the shape of an Iron Condor has, right? And you can see that it, the theoretical line is curved because there's time remaining to expiration, but at expiration, there's only parity that we're dealing with. So it gives you the shape of your profitability as well as your break-even points, 46.12 at 51.38, and the probability for profit based on the current implied volatility of the underlying stock at the current underlying stock. So, this is an Iron Condor. If we analyze a Clorox covered call, you will see, not close it, let's analyze it. You can see that it's a bullish position or a bullish strategy, but only up to a point, right? And you can also see that if it goes, this is really important for spread traders to understand. If it goes to, the strike that I sold today, I don't make 100% of my profit today because there's still volatility value in that option that I actually sold. So your expectations need to be muted a little bit, which is why Sean was saying in the earlier session, if he makes 2/3 of his potential profit in 1/3 of the time, he takes it off. He doesn't wait to give back 2/3 of his profit or give back his profit in the remaining 2/3 of time that he has left in his trade as just a general guiding principle. A covered call looks a lot like a short put. So when people start talking about how covered calls are a conservative strategy, and you learn that in options boot camp, it's a very conservative strategy. But no, I'd never sell a put option. You can sort of call them on it and say that's ridiculous. It's got the same risk profile as a short put.
Right. That's exactly right. Some people get confused by that. Hey, one of the things that has come up in a variety of ways are questions about automating, exiting a trade, et cetera. And so the most recent question couched it as, is there a way for me to automate it such as a total gain percentage? And there's not. But there are some things that are close to what you're talking about. So for instance, you can use complex orders, conditional orders, where an order for an option would be generated if, say, something happened to the price of the stock. There's a problem with that, though, is because time passes. If you set up a trade like that and say, if the stock reaches 70, sell my option, you don't really know what the option price is going to be because you don't know what's happened in between. So it's kind of tenuously connected. But there are a number of orders, bracket orders, where you can set, logical outcomes, but not the specific one that was asked there by, I forgot who asked that. One other thing that I want to clarify too, Steve mentioned day trading, and he said, I don't want to do that. One of the questions came in is, what's the problem with that? Well, day trading has very specific requirements. If you are what we call identified as a pattern day trader, and it's a regulatory description, that means if you've made 4 or more day trades in any 5-day floating period, you're identified as a pattern day trader. When that happens, you now have a $25,000 equity requirement in your account. So if your account is far lower than that, then that can become a problem. If you have a larger account, it isn't a problem. And then there are other buying power issues that arise from that that allow you to do certain types of day trades. So that's why Steve was just wanting to avoid his test account getting tagged as a pattern day trader. That's all he was talking about.
Lots of good questions for tomorrow's noon options office hours.
There you go.
Please come to that and bring all these questions, and we'll get them addressed.
Absolutely. Sean, unless you are going to throw something in here right now, I'm going to take us in for a landing. We're going to be back. I'm sorry, what is the next time slot? Are we doing it at 4 o'clock? Somebody help me out. No, 3:45.
We are. So I'll go ahead and reiterate what Steve said is do come to office hours tomorrow. Steve, it may be office hour and a half. I don't know. We certainly don't. I think we're both okay with that if that's the situation.
We would love that.
We would love it. And Mark says, can you build a credit spread from scratch starting from the portfolio page? And I'll share my comment real quick with Mark. I wouldn't suggest that. I like to build my spreads from the options chain, but I like to manage my spreads from the position screen. So it's an existing position, and I'm trying to either roll it or close it or somehow alter it. That's a great place to do it. But I think the options chain, and another comment came up, and Steve had said it. He wasn't very gentle about it. Don't trade from that trade button, because you can't see what's going on with the trade. So if you're on eTrade.com, you're like, well, let me refresh. Well, what would happen if I went out 5 points instead of 2 points? And all these what if scenarios, you can kind of think out loud by looking at the options chain versus that ticket. To me, that ticket, even though it's not static, it doesn't let me think out loud and say, what does an extra week cost me, or what does it earn me if I do this or do that? So I don't know about Steve or Dave, but I like to do those kinds of what-if scenarios, even when I'm about to hit the button. I'm not building from the trade ticket. I'm building from the option chain. And I'm going to mute again.
Well, all right. We've got 8 or 9 minutes until our next session. We're starting at 3:45 Eastern Time, and this is going to be Rick showing the functions in our mobile app related to spread trading. So we'll migrate to the mobile world there. So join us for that. Take care, folks. Again, we appreciate and read any feedback. So take a moment with that survey. We would love to have that. And we'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Sean. And, of course, thanks to all of you. Bye now.